Namaste, everybody. My name is Sandi Graham, and I'm the publisher of VASA Publishing and the Gita Comes Alive. Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi, is the author translator of this book. He's also the founder of VASA, Vedic Academy of Science and Arts. He's the co-chairman of Vedic Friends Association and a scholar on the British Board of Dharmic Scholars. As a yoga practitioner for the last 50 years, he's retired from corporate life 23 years ago and has been teaching full-time on behalf of the Vedic Sanatan Dharma. Jeffrey is a best-selling author, philosopher, poet, and Vedic astrologer. And you can learn more about Jeffrey through his blog, his poetry, his YouTube channel, and classes at jeffreyarmstrong.com and our new website, gitacomesalive.com. So let's welcome Jeffrey Armstrong, Kavindra Rishi.
Thank you very much, Sandi. Namaste to everyone. Thank you for joining us. Such a joy to see you all in this time of artificial separation from one another. There's a secret in our relationship with Bhagavan. Like in any relationship, there's two things that can happen. You could be close with each other physically, in proximity, or you could be separated. And so it is that the emotion of deep love from your very core of your heart for Bhagavan has two flavors. When he seems far away, you long for him. And when he feels close, you want it never to go away and never to end. This is how we've always felt with all of our beloveds. When they're gone, separation makes the heart grow fonder. And then when they're with us, we hope that it will last forever. I'd like you to hold that thought, because how we originally experienced our love before it was in any way subverted is something very close to the original nature of our true self. And once again, let's all do a namaste. It's lovely to watch everyone and see. Namaste. And remember, this is your balance point, as well as something you offer to the person you're giving it to. It's the place where you go back to when you've been pulled too far one way or the other, which is frequently in the world that we live in. Therefore, when you're used to installing this namaste place in the morning, in your morning mantra meditation and yoga practice, then it's your go-to. This is why we do a sadhana early in the morning, so that we take advantage of being born again. We're like a little baby in the morning, and our cells listen to what we say to them much more eagerly than after being hammered by the day. But if you install that namaste balance point at Vishnu and Lakshmi point, first thing in the morning, then you'll automatically go back to that. When you know you're tilted, you'll go, oops, there I am. Oops, little off. There it is. Kind of like the carpenter's bubble on the instrument used to make a flat surface. You then see when the bubble's exactly here. The goal of being a yogi is to live there and go to the other two unbalanced points as needed, but then come back. If you make that a daily meditation, it will enhance your practice of yoga, and it will allow you to remember your true nature. Before I go any further, of course, we always begin in the Vedic culture by honoring the gurus who came before us, because this isn't knowledge that we have invented personally. That little clever use of English, invisible, undivisible, individual, I invented that, but I didn't invent Atma. Atma was given to me by my guru. trying to put it in my own language is a kind of seva or service to my guru and to those around me. So we begin honoring those gurus because, I'd like you to think of this, imagine a line of individuals who are passing something precious forward from its source. But that resource is thousands and thousands of miles away. And so each one hands it to the next one, who then personally hands it to the next one. This knowledge is hand to hand. The guru doesn't think of themselves as guru. They just think of themselves as the servant of their guru. But they are serving everyone in the same mood that their guru did, which is with nothing in return except the joy of knowing that this is what Bhagavan wants. That everyone should be reached if they're willing. When they're not, we're just patient, we wait. No coercion, no conversion, just conversation. But nothing is more beautiful than this two-way relationship. So what I'd like you to understand is when I say the Guru mantras now, I'm linking myself and all of you to lineages that go back for hundreds of thousands of years, that have come down in the perfect Sanskrit language and gradually, in some amazing way, have even now left their home base and come out into the world, and now reached to all of the people from India. They see so many people from the West still exploiting their beliefs and their knowledge. So that if we don't do this ritual, and if, like myself, we have white skin and could look like and be that Caucasian invader who said they were better than everyone over the last 300 years. This is why it's so important for us not to colonize this knowledge, but to honor it, cherish it, pass it on, but to not forget and not neglect those gurus and teachers who have been the lineage source of this knowledge and who gave their lives to making sure it comes to us. So it really isn't me speaking to you. It's me allowing my guru to speak to you, my gurus. And then they would say the same thing. They would say, but my guru gave me this, as we hand this precious substance to the next generation. And this is why we begin discussing the Bhagavad Gita, because after all, that was so many thousands of years ago. Imagine how many people's hands it's been carefully held in, keeping the meaning, using the Sanskrit, and not losing the essence of what was said, that this conversation of the Bhagavad Gita has come to us over such great distance. So this is the mood, and mood is what I was talking about with what's called meeting and separation. Sometimes you feel so close to your beloved or to your ultimate beloved that you're just a quarter of an inch away, you're embraced. And at other times, you don't feel that and you feel alone in the darkness of the material world. Because we all have to feel that feeling to have the right emotion, not to ask for something. You don't ask your beloved for something. You ask them to please come back. And then you ask, how may I serve you? Not what may I get from you or take from you, but how may I serve you forever? So, this is the mood of the yogi as they go to speak to others. They think these thoughts. They think, this isn't from me. Please don't applaud me. Know that your applause is for the source which transformed me and allowed me to perform this service. Otherwise, an important person sitting in a chair looks like another power play. It looks like one more person sitting above everyone else. But believe me when I tell you that the mood of the Bhagavad Gita, the mood of Arjuna, because he knew he was hearing from Bhagavan directly. His mood was, how fortunate I am. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And Om Ganan Timirandasya, Ganan Gana Salakaya, Chakshur Unmilitam, Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. So this becomes a way of life. Liking to make aphorisms as I do, I wrote, gratitude is the attitude. Gratitude is the attitude of a yogi. And everything is an opportunity. If you've heard those words before, it's because the Vedas reached our civilization, but was filtered out and colonized. For the 400 years of colonization, there were there was a term for it. It was called discovery. Discovery, I'm sad to say, was a term invented by the Pope a little before the voyages of Columbus. And it means if you go someplace and you're a Christian, then when you get to that place, you can do whatever you want, take everything, enslave the people, colonize completely, take all their wealth, completely take their land, and then, best of all, make them into Christians. Well, if that really was what Christ was all about, there wouldn't be any land left. Oh, but there isn't. Colonization doesn't seem to have helped us much in this regard. But to be fair, they cracked the world open so that now this Vedic knowledge has gone everywhere. The purpose of the divine is hard to fathom sometimes. But the reason I'm saying this is that we even have colonized ideas. All the whole New Age movement is just a colonization of ideas without quoting the source. That's called discovery. It's called intellectual discovery. It's a legal term for taking things and calling them yours because you're superior. I wanted to share this with you because it's so easy for me to be accused of being a colonizer, and those of us who are not from the culture. Because the people of India, right, part of the time, 80% of the time they're right, it still is colonization. Taking it with no thanks, taking it without correctly representing it, taking it and leaving out the Sanskrit. But if you show a great example, if you be truly in this learning, what you get, and this is what we're going to talk about this evening, you get a large worldview instead of a small one. I alluded to this in the first two classes. We have two more before we start on the Gita. And in this one, since last time we talked about existentialism and epic existentialism, the situation of the individual, now what we need to do before we go on with the conversation is contextualize it in the way that the Vedas do. In other words, I'm going to offer you a new worldview tonight, a new way to look at the world. You heard this Sanskrit word that I'm offering to you because there was a person in history, in India's recent history, who wore this title. The word is Mahatma. Maha, Atma. The word Maha became mega in Latin, like a megalopolis. But Maha means not just great, which is its usual English translation. It means one whose scope of vision is as large as reality. That is a Maha Atma. A Maha Atma is someone who has gone beyond the small world in which they were built and are living. And even though we're living on one small planet in the many galaxies and universes around us, and our astronomers are very pleased to say, oh, we're so tiny. Yes, but unfortunately, we're not so humble. There's a wonderful video, if you want to look it up in YouTube, of Carl Sagan, a famous and very talented astronomer, walking in a Shiva temple in India. And on the floor of the temple around him are hundreds of Shiva lingas of varying heights, up to a couple feet tall, hundreds of them. And he's threading his way in between them and being filmed. And he says to the camera, only India and modern science estimated the age of the universe in billions of years. Pause. And I'm thinking, lovely. But he then says, of course, that must have been a coincidence. That modern science knows it is because they're so smart. That ancient India knew it tens of thousands of years ago was some coincidence. They couldn't have known mathematics, and yet mathematics came from India. They couldn't have known astronomy, and yet, surprise, astronomy came from India. They couldn't have known medicine, and yet 2,500-year-old surgical manual called the Sushruta Samhita and the Charaka Samhita for medicine came from India. So I'm just trying to share with you first the sensitivity, because this is real humility, and real humility is triggered by being a Mahatma. When you see the greatness of everything, then you automatically do this also. It's so overwhelming, you're trying to not fall over at seeing it. I know you've had moments in your life like this where you look at a sunrise, you look at something, you look at a mountain, you see something beautiful, and you just about fall over. It's so overwhelmingly beautiful. And I'd like you to hold that thought for a moment. Just feel that. Because that should have raised a question in that moment. And if you didn't feel so small, and if everything didn't feel so distant, and if it didn't feel almost futile to say so, you would actually feel two desires. The first is to always feel like that. And the second would be to go to the place where that beauty comes from. This is the emotion that we don't need a guru to experience. It's the most prevalent form of awakening at a young age when we're tender enough. And if we haven't been damaged, we look at everything with eyes of wonder. Those eyes of wonder could not go to a country and destroy and colonize it. Those eyes seeing divine beauty would never have been able to do such things. So personally, I don't believe that Christians went around and did the world and did that. I think that would hurt the feelings of the true Christians. I believe it was the Roman Empire. It was the Roman Empire in the name of Christianity. It was so much is done in the name of something, and it distracts us from our own direct perception. So if you will just feel that moment of direct perception of the immensity and beauty, not immensity and danger, but immensity and beauty, then this is where we begin tonight. This is the context within which we need to read the Bhagavad Gita, because first we have to see everything on scale. So I'm going to give you some Sanskrit words about this that expand the context in which you live your life. And this is a very important yogic practice, to meditate on the context so that everything stays in perspective and not to get lost in the tiny moment. Even though you have to live that moment, it can erase your perspective, or you may never have gained one. Sadly for us, that's the case. So, the first thing to understand is that the Vedic knowledge, of which the Bhagavad Gita is one small book, this 701 verse book is in fact one of the smallest message books of the Vedic library. And in the Vedic library, there are thousands of books on various subjects, all of which contain amazing information. There's a group of books called the Puranas. Puranava, that which apparently old is always new. There's the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, the two great epics. There's the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Atharva Veda. All of these in Sanskrit, all of these lasting over time because of that. Then there's the 108 Upanishads associated with the Vedas, the four Vedas. And then there are Upavedas, and there are Vedangas, and there are limbs of the body of learning. So that in fact, if you want a point of comparison, what is a little daunting about the knowledge of the Vedas is that if the Abrahamic religions, as they said, were people of a book or a few books, then the truth of the culture of India is that they are the people of a library of downloads, of a library of remembrances that are the result of certain divine activities taking place that we have never heard about in our civilization at all. And because they were intimidating to the scientists, to the religionists, they dismissed them as myths, as fairy tales, as the babblings of a primitive people. And that has been the propaganda since 400 years ago when India was colonized. That this is a primitive people whose mythology, whose mythia means false, whose false ideas are childlike and primitive. And yet, explain to me why. It is the largest library of ancient wisdom on our planet, bar none, and it is in the most perfect language that is actually being now studied by all the technology studiers, all the engineers, as the most perfect programming language, and they're borrowing programming from Sanskrit because it's the most perfect language. We don't even know how much we're still taking from the Vedas, but not giving credit. So for someone like myself, coming from the outside and being let in, first of all, and secondly, given this library, and third, having my awareness of the scope of existence irrevocably made large. Just by the association with the gurus and rishis and sages who know that knowledge. And some of them know one or two of those books, some 10, some 20. Some are so brilliant they can range across the library with amazing ability. It should be no mystery to you that the people of India all became engineers and programmers. After all the Indic languages are based on a programming language, Sanskrit. And sadly, because they've also been taught to be humble, and because they've been colonized badly for hundreds of years, the Indian community doesn't talk like this because their situation's been so precarious. So in a way, it's my responsibility, and people like me who appear to be the colonizers, to not be so at all, and instead to accept the great gurus and rishis of India as our authority and as our teachers in the remarkable culture that they've been living in for so long. Now, having said that, I'm going to give you a few concepts that are the basis of the Veda and the basis of the Bhagavad Gita, because by meditating upon them, you'll begin to have that Mahatma perspective. You're going to have to stretch for this. And it's necessary to write down and learn and memorize the Sanskrit that I use. It's not something that you can sort of get. And that's why it seems daunting to Western civilization. Because we're used to faith-based religion with a book or two. We're not used to a great library in the most perfect language, filled with amazing knowledge that has a scale and scope that is so vast that once it's inside of you, you'll never be led again like a sheep by politicians who have no good emotions. You'll become able to tell when someone is truth-telling. You'll feel when someone is caring for the good of all. You'll know. And these qualities are scattered amongst the Abrahamic religions and the many places in the world, because what you need to know is from India to China was a pathway called the Silk Road. And along that Silk Road, for the last 10,000 years or longer, culture, civilization, knowledge has been going back and forth. In the year 1000 or 1100, about 300 Sanskrit works were taken to China at China's request by a Sanskrit scholar and translated into the various Chinese languages, Mandarin and others. Who told you about that in school? Who talks about this global influence that has been spreading out? Who talks about the fact that 70% of the European languages are Sanskrit-based, not Latin-based, not Greek-based, because Latin and Greek are based on Sanskrit. So before we go much further, it's my job, because it's difficult for people from India to have the clear enough English and to have the chutzpah to do this, because they're guests in another person's home. And their home's been denigrated and spoken badly of and misnamed. This is the biggest problem right now, you need to know, for Indian school children. They go to schools in the English-speaking world where their culture is spoken of despicably by history books. But have you ever read a Western history book that tells the truth of colonization? I never did. I'm a history major. So please understand, you've been lied to massively. If last week was epic existentialism, this is epic lying by the institutions of learning who should have known better and done better. And once again, to be fair, a small percentage have. Henry David Thoreau read the Bhagavad Gita every day. Who told you that in school? Nobody. Ralph Waldo Emerson and Thoreau and Parker and Channing had an organization to teach Vedic knowledge, which they were reading in French translations. They were reading the Vishnu Purana, the Upanishads, and so did the Germans, because German comes from Sanskrit. They were deeply read on the Vedas. And where do you think German rocket scientists came from if it wasn't from the Vedic knowledge of mathematics, physics, astronomy? It didn't just pop out of the air. It certainly didn't come from the Bible or the Quran or the Torah. It came from India. This can't be said often enough, as far as I'm concerned. This can't be said often enough until it's in all the history books. But let me tell you a secret, because I was a history major. The reason the knowledge of colonization is not in the history books in the United States of America and Canada is because, and especially in the United States, to tell the actual story of history is considered a security risk, because it could cause revolution and foment amongst the people once they're told the truth. You see, I can't talk to you about the Vedas as if I'm just a guru and just go along and have the conversation and say, and the Vedas say this and the Vedas say that. That's more colonization. That's now a Caucasian guru, worst nightmare to the culture that was destroyed by the Caucasians and by the English culture and disregarded and had their history written in a despicable way. You know, cows, cast, and curry. That about sums it up, right? Yeah, right. That about sums it up. That's how despicable the history is that is currently still taught to the Indian children who go to English-speaking schools. This is why I've translated the Bhagavad Gita into English, not because it can be perfectly done, because it can't. The Sanskrit is so sophisticated. Ultimately, everyone has to learn Sanskrit to get all the meanings. But we can also learn from Sanskritists who have great English. And we can, first of all, right the wrongs and small-mindedness and despicable behavior of denigrating the greatest culture that has ever existed on our planet just by the scope and scale of what they have done. And you know they traveled because you see the evidence of their friends in the Incas and the Mayans and in Peru and throughout South America. The temples look just like the temples in India. It doesn't matter how that happened. What you must know is that it happened by ships traveling the world at a time way before Columbus brought venereal disease to North America. That's why I don't celebrate Columbus Day. We're never told the real story. And if anything, what's happening right now with the unprecedented, unscheduled yoga movement around the world, it's spreading like a virus. Talk about viruses. Yoga spread like a virus to hundreds of millions of people. Very sensible people, mostly females. And I mean it. Because the feminine divine is the other person who was thrown out for the last 5,000 years. Literally just thrown out. I see. Well, that makes perfect sense. Does it? Let me see if I've got it right. My mother carried me. My mother breastfed me. My grandmother made my life wonderful and beautiful. All the females that I've known are complex multitude of beautiful abilities, of amazing qualities. They make things beautiful wherever they go. They nurture, they heal, they nourish, they give birth, they care, they feel. And yet we don't have a feminine divine. Somehow, probably because of my last life, I intuited this. That's what led me to it 50 years ago. I looked around and said, this is crazy. Something's terribly wrong. Because I'd studied enough of it. I have 4 or 5 degrees. I'd studied enough of it to see the inconsistencies and the arrogance and the lies. And every subject I studied went back to India. Every subject I pushed back beyond the boundary led back to Bharat, to India. I'm saying this because if you don't really get this, then once again, you may believe the propaganda that the scale of the existence of everything that I'm about to share with you is a mythology, is mythia, is false, is the creative mind of primitive savages who gave us all of the great perspectives we have, and we took it without saying thank you in something called intellectual discovery, pretending to invent it. Why? Because academia wouldn't let a professor say this came from India, because that violated the cultural worldview of the West. So instead, they said, I just discovered this. It happened to Darwin, who got the evolution of the animals from the evolution of the avatars of Vishnu, fish, turtle, boar, etc. It happened in so many ways that undoing that damage is not just saying you're sorry. What it really is becoming educated. And so I honor all of you for being here. I'm very grateful. Just imagine how many people could and should be hearing this. And if you imagine that as I have, then you'll become active in its happening. You'll look for the hungry people and feed them, the ones hungry for this wisdom, for this perspective. So with that preamble, I'm now going to open the discussion of the worldview in which the Bhagavad Gita exists. The things you need to know as the precursors for taking it, as my guru said, as it is, as it was intended, as it really is perceived by the culture in which it was received, not immediately critiqued by those who don't know it and don't want to know it. So open your heart, open your mind, and realize that everything I'm about to tell you comes from this context of the greatest scholars that have ever walked the planet that we know of, and exists in the books that they left behind to educate us so that we would be Mahatma. So that no matter how small-minded the world became, anyone with this knowledge would live in a very big, beautiful house. Now, to begin. According to the Vedas, and I'm not going to quote chapter and verse because it would get too convoluted for you, but you may ask it as a question later on. According to the Vedas, 3/4 of existence is a realm called Brahman, Brahman, that we cannot see. And 1/4 of existence is a realm called Prakriti, the realm of matter. That is the realm that we're currently residing in, which to us appears vast, and is indeed. So these two realms are the context of the coming and going of beings from Brahman. And according to the Vedas, the Atma, that's us, all of the individuals, and that's not just us, that's every living entity you've ever seen. It has an Atma inside its body. It's not a human characteristic. And so, everything that lives is an Atma with a covering of matter. Therefore, that means they have already entered into Prakriti. But they came from Brahman. As I said earlier, all of us are on a journey. As I said in the last class, we didn't come here because we did something wrong. We're not sinners. We're not horrible, despicable. We don't need to be saved. We shouldn't be afraid of some punishment. But rather, we should be aware that we're from another place. Our Atma is a spark of Brahman that has autonomy and individuality. It is not just an amorphous beam of light. That is not what the Bhagavad Gita says, and it is not what the Vedas say. But in that sense, when you hear someone say, it's all one, we're all one, they're just mouthing childish Vedanta. What they should be saying is that matter is one reality which is dependent upon Brahman, and Brahman is the luminous reality that lasts forever, that is made of light. Here, everything is made of darkness, and now you know the difference. So the definition of Prakriti is it is made of Gu, G-U. And you'll remember what Guru means? Gu, remover. Guru also means heavy because they're carrying a lot of heavy knowledge. Like totally man, that is heavy, as we used to say back in the 60s. 3/4 of existence is a luminous realm, and because we've been living here so long, it is very difficult for us to think of that 3/4 realm where everything is made of light instead of made of darkness as it is here. So it's very important to understand this, and there's a Sanskrit word that's used to explain this. It's called achintya. A is a negative prefix. Chintya means unthinkable. Because the material mental faculties are working within Prakriti and are made out of Prakriti, they can't actually think the thought of Brahman, because it's outside the laws of Prakriti, it's outside the laws of matter. So from within inside matter, a material, a piece of equipment, a computer, or the computer that is your mental faculties, cannot think that thought. So Brahman is called achintya, unthinkable. But according to the Vedas, we, each one of us, emanated from Brahman, are Brahman by nature, are a spark of Brahman. But now we are surrounded by an entirely alien energy. So if the matter world is called Prakriti, and the realm of luminescent existence is called Brahman, and we're from there, but we can go to both places, there's a special name for us, Tatastha, T-A-S-T-H-A, Ta, T-A-S-T-H-A, Tatastha. Tatastha means marginal. So sometimes the material realm of Prakriti is called the external energy, because we're inside and everything is external to us. Here, everything you see is the surface. You don't see everything. You don't see all of the existence of the thing. We're obstructed here by matter. Where we come from, it's achintya while you're here. But your Atma can have direct experience of Brahman. This is very important, so listen carefully. Because your Atma is from Brahman, if a piece of Brahman rubs up against you, it increases your luminescence. We experience this with each other. If I am the luminous source of consciousness inside of my body, and I'm with another being, and we combine all of our energies, the force field created by a room full of people holding the same thought, and the dynamic effect of those beings on your being breaks through the shell of your material body. and reaches your Atma and awakens it. And you have an experience of a magnitude that is greater than you can generate alone. You understand? That's not because of their body, like our body, like everyone's body. The body is dead weight that we, the Atma, are carrying around. It's unconscious sand, dirt, organic matter, yes, but it's the ingredient. We are the conscious being, and we went on an amazing journey, the epic existentialism, from Brahman. So if someone asks you, where do you come from? It's a trick question. Because if you say Oklahoma, New York, Canada, you're confused. No, that's where your car was purchased, assembled. But you come from Brahman. This is one of the main themes of the Bhagavad Gita. And if I don't bring it to your attention in a deeper way, you won't know what's happening when Krishna says Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. But here's the next secret, and this is a very important one. It is not only the case that we, the marginal, the tatasta beings, tatasta because we can go both ways, so it's described as like the line where the waves are hitting the sand. You can't quite draw the line because it's changing. That's us. We're the energy that is tatasta. We're the minute particles of Brahman with volition who cross over because we're exploring and go down into Prakriti. And once we're in Prakriti, our Atma is so brilliant that it attracts a body. And the body is literally orbiting the Atma. Your body right now is like the sun in the solar system is like the matter in your body. And your Atma, as soon as your Atma leaves the body, all the particles will just go and dribble back into their other original format, raw material. So each one of us is a little sun, a little Atma. That's the closest the Christian word soul gets to it. But we're not a soul because the sun burns out. An Atma doesn't burn out. Soul is a lame imitation of Atma. And Atmas can't be destroyed. So until we go back to Brahman, we will be within Prakriti. There's nothing you can do about it because you came here. You're on an adventure. You're on an amazing journey. And you're the Atma. And you're Tatastha. And you're in Prakriti. And you come from Brahman. That's where we come from. That's why we're all related. Because we're intrinsically the same. So this is the oneness part. We are one in that we are unified in as much as we are all Brahman. But we are not one. We are individual sparks of Brahman who have individuality before we come here and after. And those sparks of Brahman are indeed one with Brahman. So here's a secret for you. This is the big secret. The Sanskrit language is not just a perfect language. It's not just a programming language. According to the ancient rishis and teachers of the Veda, Sanskrit is sparks of Brahman. This is what leads us to mantra. But all the letters of the Sanskrit alphabet are called aksharas. And those aksharas are directly light from Brahman that eventually penetrates into matter and becomes sound vibration. And then, as science now sees clearly, from matter in its most subtle form occurs sound vibration, which becomes more dense, which condenses into matter. Everything essentially is vibration first and last. So the Sanskrit mantras, the Vedas, and the Sanskrit vocabulary can't be translated easily or at all, in certain regards, into another language, because they are sparks of Brahman, and therefore by learning Sanskrit and by chanting mantras and by using Sanskrit words, we are essentially reconnecting. And this is what yoga is meant to do. It's just a very simple thing. Let me explain it. When we Jiva Atmas, when we Atmas landed here in Prakriti, we got covered over. Yogas Chit Vritti Naroda. We got covered over with all of these helixes of matter, and it's all around us now. And that's covering our true nature. So, yoga is those activities which uncover the Atma, which recover and uncover the Atma. Nothing more. That's it. However you do that is a yoga. But the most important yogic practice, bar none, is mantras. So that is because those mantras give us a direct link. I made a little half joke, half example about this. That, raise your hand if you have a cell phone. Everybody, if you have a cell phone, raise your hand. Okay, good. Right. Now raise your hand if you are a cell phone. Because isn't your body made of cells? Aren't you picking up all the broadcasts? What is a psychic except someone who picks up your broadcast without a cell phone? We know it exists. We know it's true. We know things we couldn't and shouldn't know. So the truth is that everything is broadcasting itself. And if you have the cell phone, if you program it correctly, you can pick up what's coming in. So yoga is tuning your cell phone so that it picks up the broadcasts that are coming from where we came from, Brahman. And that's why it's called enlightenment. That word was stolen from Brahman. And looks like it's a Western philosophical term. It's not at all. It's the fact that Brahman is sparks off into us, and then sparks of Brahman are sent to us so we can find our way back. Otherwise, we're just lost in the dark down here. And I don't need to prove that to you. So, these mantras are the key to you staying plugged into Brahman, to going back to connected. So, all of us who've had them and really understood this, do them 24/7. If I'm dreaming and wake up, I start a mantra. Before I go to sleep, I chant a mantra. When I wake up, I chant a mantra. Then I chant mantras for 2 hours. Why? So I'm me again. So I'm not the body. I'm not the thoughts. I'm not the goo someone slung on me yesterday when they got mad at me, or did this or did that. Or I'm not the infirmities of my body, whatever it is. And only you can do that. Only you can become a Mahatma or be here's the term, you'll like this, Duratma. A Duratma means a small-minded being who's always suffering. And Brahman is Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. But that's the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. It's that which gives you ecstatic, joyful existence, consciousness, illumination, brings you back and restores you. You're a real nature. And the way this has been arranged is 2 kinds of visitation. One is called mantra, and the other is called avatar. When Bhagavan comes from Brahman and decides to come down in the midst of us, jivas, here in Prakriti, on Mata Bhumi, earth, it is so that light shines brightly again for us, and the procedures of staying connected to that light are downloaded. That's the Bhagavad Gita. So that we now know we have a user's manual. Tell me you could use your computer without a user's manual. Okay, so tell me your body's not a computer. Of course it is. That's what we found out. That's how we made computers. That's why we're making robots, look-alike humans. So this is the user's manual for the Atma. That's why it's only 701 verses. That's why Bhagavan, now it's called the Bhagavad Gita, so here's the next part. Now, so Brahman is the realm, but Bhagavan is the being who is the ultimate being and is situated inside of Brahman and then projects his being, his and her being, their being, it is male and female, out from there to make Prakriti into a universe. It was their wish originally that the matter itself, the Prakriti, blossom into a realm that could be inhabited. We then, the Jiva Atmas, decided to go to that place and experience it. After all, if Bhagavan created it, it must be interesting. Think of this as the science class of the Atma. We're here studying, and that's what every single species we were inside of was, a classroom. When you were a mosquito, that was your classroom. When you were a fly, you had 50,000 eyes, or facets to your eyes. When you were a dolphin, you did really cool things with sound, and you swam and were free, and it had this amazing ecstasy. Have you ever gotten on a dolphin's back and felt it? They're putting up with you. You're holding onto their fin, and they're a prisoner in a jail, and they're so good-natured, they give you a ride. And don't turn around and bite you for the insult. We've got to open our eyes to all of this. This is what becoming enlightened does. It opens your eyes to everything, and then you're Mahatma. Then you see everyone with love and appreciation, and you see the Atma inside them, struggling inside of the goo. And you now hold this view. Now you have epic vision. Now wherever you go, you're polite, you're respectful, you don't steal, you don't take, you don't harm, you don't impose yourself. Because you hold this grand view, and you know that every single being at its core is an Atma. And if you address them as such or treat them as such, all animal trainers know this. If you treat the animal the right way, if you talk their language, they will play with you. They will not kill you. The elephant won't trample you. The horse won't throw you off. So, if you become a yogi, you become a Mahatma, you hold this greater view, and don't let anyone, anything, any situation make you small-minded. Dur Atma again. That's where endure comes from. If you're suffering, you have to endure. A Dur Atma automatically is suffering because they do not know who they are. And by not knowing who they are, they wander around bumping into things in the material world, and that makes them unhappy. How could it make it otherwise? So we've got to take this vast knowledge and keep it simple enough that we can grasp it and participate in it. And I think this has been my contribution because I came in from the outside. I could feel the gradient of how difficult it was for people who've never heard this kind of thinking to gather it and receive it. This is the service I'm rendering to you on behalf of my gurus. I'm making what they said a little more clear in English so you can grasp it, get it, and then chant the Sanskrit. So I want to start our journey with the mantra to Bhagavan that is given in the Bhagavad Purana particularly, but it is the same Bhagavan as the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad is from Bhagavan, And Bhagavan is the name of the ultimate being from the realm of Brahman, who is the ultimate being, and we're now trying to understand and reintroduce ourselves, you could say. So please do not reduce that word to God. And you can read elsewhere what I say about that, but it's basically, of course, it's an aspect. It's an aspect of the fire yajna where you make an offering, build a fire, put food into the fire, say thank you to the devas for all their gifts, and the smoke rises up. That smoke is called hutam, which in German became gutam, and in Dutch became gut, and in English became God. So if I told you the supreme is smoke, you can go home. Would that be the same as Bhagavan? Would that be the same as the beautiful, endlessly knowledgeable, endlessly famous, endlessly wealthy, endlessly generous, endlessly strong and supportive being? But what if that being, Bhagavan, is user-friendly? This is the Bhagavad Gita. Think about it. What I am saying to you right now is that before you read the Bhagavad Gita, you should know that the other person speaking is not a Jiva Atma like us. It is Bhagavan, who avatared to descend, ava and tara, heal, descended to give us this knowledge so we would no longer be lost within Prakriti. And it's part of the program. He thought, or they thought, if those Jiva Atmas are so amazing, Jiva Atma means that one who's breathing in Prakriti. If those Jiva Atmas were so bold as to go there, the least we can do is descend from time to time and remind them how to go back home. Remind them where they come from, so they don't become Duratma and stay there forever and just fossilize and help I'm a rock, as Frank Zappa said. Boy, that's a 60s one. Help I'm a rock. Yeah, that's right. We're all rocks. We're Duratmas. We don't exercise our full potential. We've given up our true individuality. We've lost sight that we have the ability to, in a loving, friendly way, approach the ultimate being without any fear or trembling, without any hesitation, but rather in the highest possible state of love and appreciation and longing. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, if you taste love here, then what? I mean, tell me, then what? In Romeo and Juliet, it leads to suicide. Is that it? Is tragedy what we're meant for? If you're a Duratma, yes. If you're a Mahatma, no. It's a place where we're learning who we are. It's a place of juxtaposition of the nature of matter and the learning we can do here, and all those qualities of Bhagavan, beauty, wealth, strength, fame, those qualities. That's why we don't use God as a synonym for Bhagavan, because God, it's sacred. It's the smoke arising from a sincere offering to the devas, thanking them for dinner. Well, that's a very lovely thing. So I don't mean to say that's despicable in any way. It's just not a synonym with Bhagavan, that being who's the source of everything, etc., etc. So it's just literate. It's literacy. It's illiterate to call Bhagavan God. Do you see? So the next step in this is the mantra, so you can not only read the Gita, but be in as much contact with Bhagavan as you wish. And this is an initiation. It's called letting you in. Now, I know many of my students and many of you might have had this mantra before. And as you can see, I'm teaching these classes for everyone. So I just want to remind you of something. If you're thinking, been there, know that, just remember, the last stage of being a student of a guru is to become a guru. And you do that by hearing the talk until you can do it in your sleep. By hearing the Bhagavad Gita until you can repeat all 701 verses and explain it. So when you hear something you think you know, don't let that thought make you duratma. Don't think, oh yeah, I know that. No, think, why is he saying that again? Oh, look at that arrangement. Oh, look at that juxtaposition. Oh, look at how that sheds the light upon this so that it can actually be seen. So now the first word of the mantra is, as in the case of all mantras, the letter A, U, and M. Actually, it's not M, it's Ung. A-U, Ung. Ung is the last letter of the Sanskrit alphabet. A is the first. U is a middle vowel. But Om is not only the things that I said, but the Sanskrit alphabet is sparks of that alphabet. The alphabet is sparks of that Brahman landing here where we are. And those letters, those aksharas from the Akshar Brahman, are the bits of gold that are scattered here for us to use to recover our Brahman nature since we're here. This is why when the avatar descends with all the necessary knowledge of who we are, changes our perspective to Mahatma, because just to think of the avatar descending, we have to become Mahatmas. So the first word, Om, everyone. Namo Bhagavate. Bhagavate. It's important to say each syllable. This is the 12-syllabled mantra to Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vasudevaya Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 12 syllables. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. But the secret is, grab a hold of each of those syllables with your full attention. It's called samadhi, becoming the same as. It's one of the limbs of yoga. Don't just chant it and just hear it. Grab a hold of it with all your might. But it's a phoneme, you say, yes. It's a sound, yes, exactly. Let it grab you. If you don't grab it, it can't grab you. If you don't grab it and hold it tight, then you can't get the effect. But we live in such an obnoxious, noisy, crowded, full of blabber and useless conversation world that you're used to shutting sounds out or hiding away or going without or going la 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 la. That's not the best mantra. Instead, what a true yogi learns is, after balancing their body with asana, balancing their breathing so the life force is steady, after withdrawing their senses from the objects of matter, after becoming one-pointed in focus, after chanting and learning about the ultimate beings and how to connect with them, then the last step is samadhi, same as. But to do that, you have to make that mantra your go-to. So I'm going to challenge all of you. I want you to chant this mantra at least 4 hours a day while you're doing everything. Don't let the day go by without starting and ending the day with it and filling the day with it until it becomes first nature. Otherwise, it'll be second nature and your mind will throw it out like an old memory. Because the manas is like that, which we'll hear in the Gita. It's fickle, it's chanchala. So, to control that fickle mental faculty, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Grab them slow, because then you'll really pay attention. If you do it fast, you go, been there, done that, been there, done that, been there, done that. If you go, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Both hands are full. You can't grab anything else. This is mantra. If you chant the mantra that way, it actually works, and you're in direct contact with Bhagavan. And this is the secret. Let it go in slowly. You are in direct contact with Bhagavan, an experience the like of which nothing else can replicate. Nothing else can produce the same experience. And you're in touch with that aspect of the ultimate being, which is rich with all those things you've pursued all your life: beauty, wealth, fame, pleasure, knowledge, all of it, generosity, all the things you've ever considered beautiful, all those sunrises, all those beautiful people were little sparks, little glimpses of Bhagavan. The Bhagavad Gita is going to teach us as a user's manual how to stay in that consciousness 24/7, how to never drop out of it. And as you can understand, this entails another word which is used in yoga, and that is tapasya. 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 Can you feel when I get very emphatic and focused, it generates almost a kind of heat? It's an intensity, but it's not a heat. But if you think about it, if you're going to listen, you must listen then. You can't go, oh, la-di-da, oh, that's there, oh, hi to the dog, oh, yeah, cooking on the stove. Instead, your faculties become dharana, one-pointed. But you can get that dharana and all the other ultimate benefits of yoga. If you do this mantra, then do the rest of the yoga whenever you can, the other limbs. But this is what they call Ishvara Pranidhan in yoga. This is the final jump. But the Bhagavad Gita takes us on that final jump. So if you read it as just another book, you're not even paying attention. You haven't been prepped. Of course, in our civilization, it's understandable. You would just read it, oh, it's another book. We have billions of them. A lot of self-made experts talking about all kinds of blabber that we don't need and cutting down trees to do it. But, to be fair, there's some truth in all of that. So you hunt through the book for some golden nuggets of truth. And yes, it's true everywhere. To be fair to them, they've got 20% of the nuggets. Great, wonderful. But this is the piece that's missing. It all came from India. Now, this doesn't mean other cultures didn't also find truth. But the treasure trove of which we're speaking came from India through Sanskrit, through avatars who came purposely to earth. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna is the avatar who did that 6,551 years ago. That BC. This Gita was spoken. And that message is what we're now trying to associate with. And this is why we've cleaned off all of the other material. It's not that we don't need purports or explanations. That's what this is. But if this whole discourse was next to one verse in the Bhagavad Gita, it would take you an hour to read it, and you wouldn't get to the next verse. So this kind of learning, the purports, what I recommend is read the Bhagavad Gita Comes Alive, then choose the guru of your choice and read their purports. I guarantee you their verses will be a mess and their purports will be full of wisdom, mixed in with problematic English. But I don't want you to think that I'm disregarding or disrespecting these many attempts. But the issue here is, can you use this mantra to change your game? Or will there just be one more piece of knowledge in your collection? If it's one more rock on your shelf and you're a rock collector, good for you. It won't do anything for you. without tapasya, without you sweating, without you doing it for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, which is called japa. So get some beads, get 108 set beads, and do one mantra on each bead. My guru used to have us do that with one of the other mantras, 16 go-rounds on the beads per day, which is about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. So if you're not doing that much mantra every day, you're not taking it seriously. You're not doing tapasya. However you do it. But otherwise, your default setting is the manas. It's the mind. It's just your yakking, chatting mind. And everyone defaults back to that. And that's the human condition. In fact, we're called mankind. But it's not masculine kind. It's from the Sanskrit word manas. Manas is thinking, feeling, willing, and memory. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where human beings hang out. In their mind, in their monkey mind, going, maybe this, maybe that, I don't know, that could be that, I remember that, I took it, oh, look at that, oh, look at that, Yeah, all the time. So how can you be in touch with Brahman? Because you're at the carnival of matter and you're still absorbed in it. Well, but that's what we're here for, you say. Right, okay, fine. Have a nice day. You don't have to do this. But you have to chant mantras if you're going to do it. And if you don't chant them a couple hours a day, you're not taking it seriously. Oh, but I've got to go to work and and walk the dog. And yeah, I know, I'm a human being too. I know you got to do all those things, and that's your reason. So you got a note from your mom that says you don't have to do the mantras, or you got a note from your dog that says you don't have to do the mantras. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be a Duratma, don't. If you want to be a Mahatma, you must. It's not even optional. Because at least if you lived in the forest previously, you could be pretty peaceful and your mind wouldn't be too cluttered because you just had, monkeys and squirrels and nice animals and maybe a tiger or two trying to eat you, but well, it's the mature world. But, pretty much it was much more sweet and peaceful. But here we have everything. We have media and news and everything's blasting at us, and we have wars and nuclear bombs. And how are you going to be the controller of your manas? That is the question. And this mantra is the answer. So if you really want to prepare for, and you really want to understand the Bhagavad Gita, take it on its own terms. And those terms are, you were not qualified in ancient times to be taught the Bhagavad Gita until, under the guidance of a guru, you chanted mantras for sufficient time, cleaned up your lifestyle, quit drinking, quit smoking, lived in a decent way so that you could be reached. And then and only then are you clear enough to get the effect of the mantra and of the knowledge. Can you see how our civilization is just filled? Look at all, it makes you want to cry. They're all so beautiful. They're all so gorgeous and talented. Not our civilization, but all of them. That's what's so tragic about destroying civilizations. If we only had gone in and said, please teach us what you know. Please share your amazing gifts with us. Every tribe of First Nations, everyone, have been given some amazing gift. They learned to live with nature in their place. They could teach us how to do it. We've had it all wrong, all backwards. So the revolution in your life will be, if along with this you're not just studying a book, that's too easy. You've got to be changing yourself. And if you can't do it yet, that's when you call your guru. That's when you say, okay, Guruji, something's wrong. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do it yet. When I learned this knowledge, I spent 5 years in an ashram, sleeping on the floor with a blanket or two, sleeping 6 hours a night, serving my guru 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no breaks, no coffee, no tea, no nothing. And I am so glad I did, because that's the way you get it. And in our world, we don't have an ashram for you, because the world's so disintegrated, we don't have the money to make an ashram. We don't have a building that would hold you. You couldn't stop your lives and do that. So I want you to understand, you have to find a way to get this, but you don't have the luxury of going inside the ashram. So this knowledge won't change you unless you invest in it. And that investment, all you need is one mantra. Don't worry, you don't have to have 10,000. You can sing it, you can talk it, you can say it. When my mind is struggling with me, I go Om Na Mo Ba Ga Va Te Va Su De Va Ya. Then we do the freight train. Om Na Mo Ba Ga Va Te Va Su De Va Ya. But really, I'm rubbing up against Bhagavan. So here's the secret. The name of Bhagavan and Bhagavan are the same. If I say glass, 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 or water, 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 water in Prakriti, do I get water in a glass? Does it suddenly manifest in my hand? No. So we're used to everything here having a name, and the name doesn't produce the object. Do you get it? Okay. So we have a bad habit because we don't believe the name delivers the object. So we're jaundiced. We don't think names are really that useful. We talk with them, but we don't just go do them all the time as if that's some kind of magic. Well, guess what it is? It's some kind of magic. It's some kind of Brahman. It's some kind of Bhagavan. It's some kind of reality that if you're in touch with it, you have a light on all the time. You're enlightened. And any description for enlightened short of that is just not complete. Because it includes a personal, intimate, friendly, delicious, loving relationship with the source of everything. Ladies and gentlemen, if you settle for anything less than that, as what's at the end of this difficult journey through matter, you've cheated yourself. Everyone's tasted love. Everyone's seen beauty. Everyone's been driven mad by it. And then they despair. They despair because they don't understand that that was just the tasting party. That was just the clip to interest you in the movie, the trailer. That was the trailer. This world is the trailer, with bits of divine beauty sparkling all through it, tantalizing us and teasing us and driving us crazy and disappointing us. But if you become a Mahatma, you hold a bigger view. You have a satellite channel that goes to Brahman, not just to Texas or Russia or somewhere here on the planet. That's still Duratma. I'm just on my little planet, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and then dying. Thank you very much. But what happened to all your ideals? What happened to all your beauty? You have to call it back. You have to bring your youth back. You have to offer that as what? How do you offer something to someone who doesn't need anything? Isn't that the secret of love? The whole point of love is that you don't need something from the other person. They're self-sufficient. It's the sharing and the seva, it's called. It's the deep connection that occurs when you give me a bite of your ice cream. You offer me something. I take it. I offer something back. What if you can do that with the source of everything? What if that's the secret? What if size doesn't matter? If you had a little tiny pet, Sandy and I had a bird for a while. That bird treated us like it was the same as us. It slept at our feet. Think of this. A little bird slept at our feet while we slept at night, heedless of the danger. Slept at our feet. Woke up in the morning, came up, said hello. It had no idea of size. So this is what the Abrahamic religions did. It was so harmful. They made God distant, angry, dangerous, and then the individual a sinner and horrible and despicable. Yoga is just the opposite. We're all divine beings. We're all Brahman in nature. And Bhagavan is just looking forward to the next time we want to dance. We want to connect. We want to have a relationship. That's all, a relationship. And in a relationship, you don't wake up every morning and say, well, what can I get from you today? You lean over and say, I am so lucky you're in my life. Sandy Graham. You look at your best friend and say, you know, every time we interact, I believe in life and truth and beauty again. Isn't it amazing that a human can actually give you that experience? An animal can give you that experience? So think. That experience has given you the secret. This is why we came here for experience. To know that every little fragment of beauty, of truth, of wisdom, of love, of beauty, of anything delicious and wonderful, anything you could possibly adore and want and serve, is a little tiny fragment of Bhagavan scattered out into matter through the light of creation that created this world. Follow the light back to its source. That's yoga. But the light comes from the sound. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my beloved, O my dearest friend, O source of everything, O Bhagavan, I love you, I adore you, I hunger for you. Think of every love song you've ever heard and the mood, because the singer got in the right mood for just a moment. They might as well have been talking to Bhagavan, but they were talking to some human for a moment who was Bhagavan. Oh, my love, my darling, I hunger for your touch. If that song can make you cry, if you can feel that and get it, and if you're in a 95-year-old body that's just about to fall over the cliff, if you're almost done in your DNR, don't you still want that moment? Don't you want, oh, my love? Do you know, with Alzheimer's, the only thing you can get them to respond to is music they heard when they were young enough to fall in love. They'll wake up out of Alzheimer's and go, and take it away, and they go, that's us. That's us without yoga. That's us without Bhagavan. Or we're running from place to place, going, there it is, I'll finally get it. Yeah, oh no, you can't keep it. You can't keep any of it. You can't keep the material world. You're here to get hungry. And give that hunger to the source of everything that you've chased. I'm so grateful that you came to listen tonight so that I get to fulfill this seva to my gurus. And it is a tradition to say that this knowledge is meant for you. It's meant to become yours, and it is your birthright. It is your eternal right. So naturally with it comes the wish that you'll never forget, that you'll always remember, and that this knowledge will transform you into the most beautiful version of your true immortal being. And the manifestation of that here will be spectacular and lovely and as good as it can possibly be. May you find that in the name of Bhagavan. Thank you for listening, and namaste.